Today in the News Digest, Ukrainian drones paid a fiery visit to the Russian port of Novorossiysk. The Navy frigate and oil cargo terminal were damaged. In March 2026, the Russian army lost more troops, dead and wounded, than it could replenish. When Russia's loss becomes Ukraine's gain, while previous Syrian Russia-backed dictator Assad have fled to Moscow, Zelensky and Damascus strengthen strategic ties with new Syrian leadership. Drones target oil terminal Sheskharis in Novorossiysk. OSINT analysts have confirmed strikes in at least 3 locations. 2 harbor piers were damaged, as well as oil measurement units, 2 crucial components, without which it is technically impossible to dispatch oil to a purchasing site. Analysts point out that simultaneous strikes on these specific objects result in a de facto halt of all shipments of the port. Even so, the piers themselves can be repaired quite fast. The terminal will remain in a blind mode without the proper restoration of its oil measurement machinery. This Sheskharis oil facility is the largest oil and liquid cargo terminal in southern Russia, supplying fuel to the Russian army currently fighting against Ukraine. Ukrainian drones have struck the frigate Admiral Grigorovich, also in the port of Novorossiysk, and attacked the Sivash drilling rig. This was confirmed by the Unmanned Systems Forces. The Admiral Grigorovich is the lead ship of the Russian Navy's Project Burevestnik. It is a carrier of caliber cruise missiles, which Russians launched to attack Ukraine. 1 more oil refinery and a power plant damaged during a drone attack in Russia's Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. The attack was confirmed by the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar-Bravdy. The Kstovo refinery is one of Russia's leading oil refineries and plays an important role in supplying the entire Moscow region. Its primary oil processing capacity is about 17 million tons annually. The plant produces more than 50 types of products, including petrol, aviation, and diesel fuel. Meanwhile, head of the Office of President Kirill Budanov said Ukraine has received requests from some foreign allies to halt its regular airstrikes on Russian oil refineries, as a surge in global oil and fuel prices was driven by the Iran war.
Let's answer this diplomatically. We are receiving certain signals about this. Kirill Budanov, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine.
But the truth is, Ukrainian deep strike sanctions have a great effect. According to Bloomberg, last week, Russia exported 16 million barrels of oil on 22 tankers, which is 43% less. Cumulative shipments from Baltic ports also dropped to their lowest since the full-scale war began, with only 4 tankers loaded in Primorsk and 2 in Ust-Luga during the week. Russian army casualties on the front lines have outstripped their replacement rates. In March, the Ukrainian Defense Forces neutralized 35,300 Russian soldiers, both killed and wounded, according to Minister of Defense Mikhailo Fedorov. These figures represent only verified data. Ukraine can confirm every entry on the enemy casualty list through its comprehensive video documentation system. More about Russian losses in our next story.
These images capture the combat losses of the occupying Russian forces in Ukraine. Thanks to a video verification system, Ukraine's defense forces have confirmed that enemy losses in March 2026 reached a record high. This is depriving Russia of the ability to dictate the situation on the battlefield, President Volodymyr Zelensky said.
It is important that we have also significantly increased results in destroying Russia's air defense systems. 274 such systems were hit in March alone. There are also tangible results in destroying Russian warehouses and military logistics. The Ministry of Defense, together with the armed forces, will present the public with a detailed report for March, the data that can be made public. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
In March alone, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, 33,988 Russian troops were killed or seriously wounded as a result of Ukrainian drone strikes. Another 1,363 were eliminated by artillery and other strikes. That brings the total to more than 35,000 Russian servicemen in a single month. This is almost comparable to Russia's monthly mobilization figures.
For the 4th month in a row, enemy losses have exceeded the rate at which their forces are being replenished. We are moving confidently towards our strategic goal, 50,000 plus eliminated Russian occupiers per month. The effectiveness of air defense is steadily increasing. In March, the number of Shaheds and Gerberas destroyed by interceptor drones doubled. Despite Russia's attempts to commit record resources in order to seize the initiative, its only achievement is mounting losses. Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukrainian Defense Minister, on Telegram.
According to Ukraine's general staff, Russia's total losses since the start of the full-scale war against Ukraine have already exceeded 1.3 million person.
Можно сравнить с тем, что действующая российская армия составляет...
You can compare that to the fact that Russia's active army numbers around 1 million troops. Since 2022, Russia has lost the equivalent of 1.5 active armies.
To avoid being sent to the front line in the Kostiantynivka sector, Russian servicemen are reportedly disabling their own equipment on a mass scale, according to members of the Atesh resistance movement. By their account, mechanical engine damage, the draining of technical fluids, and sabotage of wiring and fuel systems often happen right before rotations or combat deployments.
Equipment that is supposed to be operational is standing idle. Units are sabotaging their own combat readiness. And these are no longer isolated cases, but a systemic pattern in the Kostiantynivka sector, from a statement by the military movement of Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars Atesh on Telegram.
Ukraine's defense forces are not only destroying enemy resources on the battlefield, but are also carrying out successful operations against Russia's military-industrial complex deep in the rear. In March, former defense minister and now Secretary of Russia's Security Council Sergei Shoigu said that no region of Russia can feel safe from Ukrainian attacks. He warned that Ukraine's armed forces could strike facilities in the Urals and even farther away. In January 2026, Roscosmos was already forced to relocate development of the Angara launch vehicles from Moscow's Khrunichev Center to branches in Siberia and Perm, but even that is not stopping Putin.
Putin, тот живет совсем в другом мире.
Putin lives in a completely different world, and the losses of the Russian army, human losses, material losses, do not concern him. He lives in his own imagination. His army is going nowhere. None of Putin's allies still believes in the effectiveness of his army. Only he remains convinced of it, and as long as that Kremlin rat remains convinced of it, they will keep grabbing more and more people and throwing them onto the front line in Ukraine.
Despite the huge losses at the front, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia would continue the war against Ukraine until all of its goals are achieved. He also claimed that Kyiv should withdraw its troops from Donbass today, or better yet, yesterday. According to him, the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces would help move towards a political and diplomatic settlement of the conflict. In 12 years, Russia has failed to seize the entire territory of Donetsk region, and it will not be able to do so within the 2 months stated in the Kremlin's ultimatum either. Inside Russia itself, experts believe a mobilization could still be announced. That would mean that all other options for preserving the combat capability of the Russian army have been exhausted. Reported by Natalia Husak, UATV News.
The Ukrainian president has toured the Gulf region in recent weeks, meeting leaders in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, as Tehran retaliates against U.S.-Israeli operations with drone and missile strikes across the region. Volodymyr Zelensky visited Syria, the latest in a string of visits to the Middle East in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. Zelensky met with Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa in Damascus. The visit to Damascus is the first just leader-level visit since diplomatic relations between Ukraine and Syria were restored in September 2025, when Zelensky and al-Sharaa met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Ukraine then supported Syria after the fall of the Russia-supported Assad regime, and today is ready to continue working with Damascus on stability and development. Two countries would work closely together so that the two people can become stronger and their economies can thrive.
We discussed the situation in the region and the prospects for its change for the better. We also discussed the circumstances of Russia's war against Ukraine. I am grateful for the support. There is great interest in exchanging military and security experience. We are ready to work together to increase the capabilities of our states and peoples. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
More in regards to Zelensky's visit to Syria. Turkey's influence and stance in a new geopolitical axis being built in the region shouldn't be underestimated. Turkish political assistance is immense, and for a good reason. It is not an aid or humanitarian help or any sort of publicly declared alliance today that tomorrow can be dismissed, subject to a swiftly changing geopolitical scenery. No. It's the alliance that itself will shape the geopolitical scenery of the region for decades to come. That is the alliance built on mutually beneficial interests that coincide. And today, what is happening in Syria, both Turkey and Ukraine are seizing the improved momentum lost by Russia and Assad back in the day. On the previous stop in his Middle East tour, Zelensky met with his Turkish counterpart, President Erdogan, in Istanbul on April 4th. Erdogan and Zelensky were talking about future gas infrastructure, including the possibility of jointly developing those gas fields that Ukraine possesses, amongst the largest and the richest in the world. Ukraine had also previously announced that it was signing 10-year defense partnerships with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Again, this about mutual benefit. So President Zelensky has explicitly tied Kyiv's assistance to the region's deep stocks of anti-ballistic missile interceptors, of which Ukraine is in short supply. That's it for today's News Digest. The battlefield is shifting, the numbers are telling, and the trends are hard to ignore. Stay sharp, question everything, and keep your edge, because the story is still being written. See you in the next update.